How I failed in trucking and what I would do differently if I start today. Let me be real with you. A lot of carriers, by the way, this is 100% honesty, 100% total transparency. Most trucking companies that you see on the road right now, they're in two scenarios, specifically last 6, 7 months. One scenario is they're breaking even, means they're not making money, but they're also not they're not losing money, but they're also not making money. And then scenario number two is they're operating at loss for about 2 to 3 months now. So I was talking to a lot of carriers lately for about last 6 months or so, talking to carriers. We're building a platform for carriers and dispatchers. So that's where they are right now. The two scenarios: not making money, breaking even. And then the second scenario, obviously, they're about to file a bankruptcy. That's where they're at. The reason why I do this live session is most people only talk about success. Hey, we have this many trucks. We bought this many trucks. We are, going into, hey, Josh, hello. And we're increasing number of trucks. We had this or that. We're making money. But not many people sharing how they failed in trucking. In this live session is one of them that, hey, I'll just give you everything that, the reason why I failed it, just step by step. Hey, I did that because of that. I failed it. X, Y, and Z, and I failed it. I used this bank and I failed it. I bought this truck. I failed it. I didn't go into, for example, this market, but then I preferred going into flatbed market, and that was the reason why I failed it, for example. So I do have my notes and then talking points. Obviously, number one is how I failed in what I would do differently. And by the way, most people do fail too, but then they're not sharing it. But I'll be honest with you, and then total transparency, as I said at the beginning, that I'll be sharing. So in second, if I wanted to start today, what I would do differently: the marketing, the sales, hiring, dispatchers, hiring, the drivers and everything. And obviously, third point, I really want to talk about which market to choose if you're brand new coming into trucking, wanted to start your trucking company. Maybe you're thinking about buying a box truck, maybe hotshot, maybe reefer, anything. Means if you're a new carrier, then you'll definitely learn something. And I want to talk about help stock carriers right now. As I said, for the last 6, 7 months, talking to these carriers and trying my best to consult, to help these carriers with the marketing and then with the operation aspect, all that good stuff. And I want to share those strategies with you as well. Maybe you're interested in becoming owning a trucking company, or maybe you're interested in, dispatching, all that good stuff. And then I do have Q&A session at the end. But before I go into the Q&A session, I do have about 6 questions to cover in this live session with you. And if you do have, please let me know those questions. So I want to personally invite you into the group that I have. The link will be added in the description below. There's a specific group that I have for carriers and brokers and dispatchers. Please just stick around, and then I'll be sharing with you, and then there will be a special invitation for you guys. So there's a total of 6 questions. Let me go quickly over them, and then I'll just let you know what we'll be covering. The number one question, a lot of you asking, you can find those questions in the comments as well. The number one question is, should I lease, rent, or buy a truck when starting out? These are the people don't know anything about trucking. Maybe, and some people, maybe they're already in dispatching, wanted to start their, trucking company. We can definitely talk about that. That's the number one question. The second, how many trucks should I start with? Ooh, this is awesome question. And I do have the strategy to share with you. So instead of starting with one truck, there is a strategy I'll be sharing with you. And then the second question is, how many trucks should I start with, one or more? Then third question, is it better to go into flatbed, reefer, and obviously, or drive-in 2025? So I do have one market to share with you. And obviously, if you pick that, you'll be successful. You'll make money in trucking. And then I'll be giving you reasons. I'll be giving you a lot of reasons. So the number 4, this is specifically for carriers. How do I hire drivers if I don't have a strong brand yet? Hiring drivers, we'll be talking about those, paid and free. So number 5, what's the best step if I wanted to become a carrier, but I'm currently dispatching? Great question. We'll be going into that question as well. So the number 6, what's the biggest mistakes people make when getting loans for their trucks? You better watch. If you're a carrier, just stick with me. This is huge. And I'll be sharing my situation or situations working with these, the banks, and then obviously switching them, back and forth. But then I'll be, giving you insights so you can definitely learn about those. So coming back, this session is obviously will give you the clarity and courage to start your trucking business. If you, as I said, if you're stuck, you can definitely learn something from it. Well, a little bit of a backstory, how I started in trucking, that will give you basically the concept, right? You will understand the situation, what happened. I started trucking back in 2008, but actually dispatching actively, it was about 2014, 2015. 2015, this is where I started my trucking company. But 2014, I was actually dispatching cars, but not the general freight. And we'll be talking about this. And a lot of people have questions about, hey, what about, car hauling business? And what about, general freight? For example, we'll be talking about that as well. So in 2008, I was working with one of my friends. So he's pretty successful. And he said, hey, am I buying more trucks? Why don't you come in and then be my dispatcher? So, but before that, obviously, we're best friends. And then he said, hey, let's do this as a partnership. And I didn't want that. The reason why, I was studying English, and then I was more into education, meaning, hey, I want to go to Georgia State University, get the medical degree, whatnot. Well, first psychology, then go to and get the medical degree, whatnot, and then life will be awesome. That's at least what my family wants from me, right? But me into business, making money, but I'm in between. So I declined. Unfortunately, I declined, and I said, well, you know what? I'll be studying. I want to learn English more. And he's like, man, I don't even speak English, but then I'm running these trucks. And I know that time, I think he had about 4 trucks. These a big 9 car haulers. He's making a ton of money. He's driving a nice car. He's buying a house. And I'm struggling. I'm struggling financially. I'm sitting in the lectures thinking about running my trucking business. And I said, listen, the next year, what I would do is just go part-time on, education, and I'll be working with you, learning the ins and outs of this, how to use load boards, whatnot. Then I realized that there's a central dispatch. He's teaching me, moving fast. I learned using how to use central dispatch. Central dispatch is very different. We'll be talking about that in details. It's very different than DAT. It's very different than 1, 2, 3 load board and truck stop. Why? Because these are the general freight, and then central dispatch, and one of them is super dispatch, if I'm not mistaken. These are the 2 load boards, very popular on auto transport industry. So I started using these, listening to these people, or the dispatchers, how they're talking to their brokers, what are the different sizes of cars, and so then back to the story and moving fast forward, and I'm like, okay, now I know the dispatching. What I want to do is hey, I want to buy a truck. And my friend says, hey, listen, I think what you need to do is dispatch first. You just learn, obviously, in and out, but you just dispatching for about a month or 2. So just stick with me. Then you will buy your first truck, and then you move forward. He was thinking that I'm going into the car hauling, but then in my mind, I'm more into flatbed, reefer, all general freight. I was thinking about that. So what happened about dispatching for about 6 months, and then I'm like, okay, what I would do now, I want to buy a truck. So what I did is, okay, I'm sitting in planning. I didn't in-depth research about the markets, but I'm talking to people that are in drive-in, they're in flatbed, learning about the different markets, what I realize is that flatbed market makes money, and then there's a reason. But scaling, it's not quick, right? You have to wait for it. With a drive-in, you can scale quickly, but then obviously advantages and disadvantages. This is what I'm trying to say. I'll come back to that. So then I'm like, okay, I want to hire a driver. Then what am I doing? I don't know how to hire a driver. I never did hire a driver. So I'm talking to his friend, and he says Craigslist and this social media, post here, post there. Ask people, maybe they have the drivers, and they'll be sharing with you. So I'm like, okay, I don't have a truck yet. What I would do, and then I'm reaching out to my friends who own the CDL. One of my best friends, he got the CDL, and I'm like, hey, listen. And by that time, he's working and he's making good money, but he has a CDL. I'm like, hey, I'm starting my trucking company. I want to be a partner with you. I think I use this strategy because I think the only way to convince him is basically giving part of my company. And it's not even started yet. So he agreed, and he's one of my best friends, and he said, hey, listen, let's do this. And we put some money. Obviously the down payment was an issue, and we bought the truck, the first truck. So the failing aspect here, the number one thing is that I didn't know anything about general market, which is drive-in, reefer, and the flatbed. Meaning load boards are totally different. Well, I'm talking to friends and families. They'll be like, yes, if you used your the central dispatch or whatever the load board is, it's pretty similar. You're talking to freight brokers, right? They're shippers, and then they're carriers. And obviously there is a broker. You're talking to a broker. He gives you the car, or he gives you the whatever the freight is. Well, that's not true. It's totally different game. The terminology, and then obviously how these drivers picking up the load on the car or whatever the heavy duty equipment is totally different thing. So, and obviously tarping, chaining, strapping, all that good stuff. So the number one thing that failed me, I bought my first truck without fully knowing anything about general market. So second important, I think, to know this is I didn't know anything about flatbed either. I knew that most of in my community, people in the flatbed market. And as I said, there is a reason why they're going into the flatbed market. So what I did, I was like, okay, I want to buy the flatbed and start my trucking company that way. So, but before starting actually buying the flatbed trailer, we're talking with my friend who's my partner now, and he'll be like, listen, I moved cars. I'm more comfortable starting car hauler rather than general freight. I'm like, okay, I think it makes sense because I know how to dispatch in in car hauling. So what we did is obviously we bought the car hauler first. So we bought the car hauler. So now we're moving. Obviously, we're making money here and there. We quickly realized that buying in a second truck, well, basically scaling this car hauling business is tough. It's labor intensive, capital intensive, and brutally competitive. So what I realized, this is where I'm making the switch. I'm like, okay, I'm moving into the general freight because these people make a lot of money with flatbed. I'm moving into a flatbed. This is where I'm making that mistake. So there is a connection, right? So I didn't know how to obviously dispatch these flatbeds. So then we sold the trailer, we switched back, we bought the flatbed. Now we're running into general freight. We're using DAT, and at the same time, my people using two load boards, right? One of them is DAT, and then the other one is truck stop, looking at these dual monitors, two screens at the same time. They're, booking loads. I'm excited. So, and moving fast, I'm talking to my friend and I'm saying, listen, we want to buy a second truck. This is the mistake that I'm making, not even realizing that I'm about to fail my business. Why? Well, first of all, my friend, he's more operational brain. He knows how to drive. He knows how to fix, trucks, all that good stuff. But me, more into marketing and sales. To me, it's like we need to buy more trucks and then more trucks, and then we'll scale and then we'll do this and we'll be successful. So you're kind of scared, right? We're on the safe side. I'm driving, we're good, we're making money here and there, but hey, two of us, right? We have families and then we need to make money. So we need to move forward. Not knowing my numbers, my cost per mile, is my trucking company ready to buy another truck, for example? We're not even looking at those numbers, thinking by default that if we add more trucks, we'll be making more money. And that logically makes sense. If I buy 2 trucks, 3 trucks, 4 trucks, I'll be making more money. But it turns out if you don't know your numbers, it actually decreases dramatically, and that pulls you towards the bankruptcy. And you don't know what's happening. And we'll be like, what's happening? These people making money, they have tens of, hundreds of trucks, and they're making good money, but what's happening with me? Well, maybe they know their numbers, and that's why they're adding more trucks and they're making more money. But hey, you're making a little bit of money. Maybe we're breaking even, let's say, and we're thinking that, hey, if we add one more truck, we'll be making more money. That's not true. Well, imagine there is a dashboard, right? It gives you, I think this is a great idea for those people who wanted to do software for tracking companies or something like that. Imagine there is a platform where you log in and you see your company snapshot. Meaning there is a green button, red button, and then there's yellow button, for example, shows you, or the indicator. You running a company snapshot with a click of a button, and it says, you're not ready to buy another truck because of X, Y, and Z factors in your business, right? You're not making last 3-4 months money, or you're breaking even. Your average rate per mile with this dispatcher that you have in your team is about 2.3. But then your cost per mile is 1.9. I just give you an example. And you can't buy a truck and you move forward, obviously hire a better dispatcher, or you train your dispatcher, or maybe you switch markets. From drive-in, you can go into flatbed. From flatbed, go into reefer. But do something so that you can be profitable. That's what's happening in my mind. But then I'm not using it, right? So then the second indicator is yellow, thinking hey, last couple of 6 months, give or take, you're okay. But then be careful. You can buy a truck, but then I think you're better off if you just continue running your just one truck operation for another 2 to 3 months to see if you're in a green light, you can buy a truck, right? So then, obviously, speaking of a green light, this is where it shows you hey, you're good to go. You're profitable last 3-4 months. It's good. Your dispatcher's making good money, and here's your average rate per mile, and your actual cost per mile is decreased. Your rate per mile increased. Good to go. Buy another truck. This is where your company snapshot gives you that ability, and you use that and you buy a truck. Well, back then when I started, I didn't have that, right? I'm hey, buy next truck. My second truck will make more money. If I'm making $30,000 as a gross revenue, and I'll be making $60,000 gross revenue, and then that's it. We're good, right? So I do have expenses, whatnot, but I'm not thinking in terms of what if my driver gets violation or accident or truck breakdowns or maintenance or everything. I'm not even thinking about the bad scenario. Why? Naturally, we think in terms of money. If I buy another truck, I will be successful. If I buy another truck or add 2 more trucks, and I'll be successful. It doesn't make any sense. Obviously, makes sense when you want to increase the profit, obviously, and the number of trucks equals to greater revenue, and that's not true. That's the second, I think, failing scenario that I have. Let's put it that way. So, also not testing the business model. This is where the flatbed comes in. Means back then when I was into flatbed market, I didn't know anything about drive-in, and I didn't have this comparing points, let's say, I didn't. Okay, I know that flatbed makes more money just because my friends told me, because they are in the flatbed market. If you're in the flatbed market in reefer, it's all about quality, work, and car hauling included. If you're on a drive-in, it's quantity rather than quality. Why is that? Well, drive-in makes less money. So if you're going into drive-in, you need to increase the number of trucks pretty quickly. Wait a second. I told you that buying more trucks or adding more trucks is not easy, but how it's so with the drive-in? Well, here is the advantages and disadvantages going into flatbed or van. Flatbed is more labor intensive, means drivers don't want to do flatbed. Most of the drivers don't want to drive flatbed. Why? Well, because it's labor intensive. Tarping is one example. Chaining, strapping. Let's put this away and let's talk about the drive-in. Drive-in is less labor intensive. You're obviously not tarping. You're not maybe chaining here and there, strapping inside the trailer, but mostly you're driving and then hiring drivers and buying more, trailers. It's easy why drive-in is less expensive, give it or take the reefer and the flatbed. So reefer is expensive because of the refrigerated unit, right? So flatbed is a little bit cheaper than reefer, and obviously drive-in is the cheapest, I think, trailer. So buying in bulk, this is one of the reasons why you will see a lot of drive-in when you drive out there on the road. You see that a lot of carriers, they're into drive-in. Why? Because you can quickly scale, and I shared the reasons why. Hiring drivers, because drivers is the number one factor. So if you have, access to drivers, obviously you have no problem adding more, trailers. These dealerships will be working with you day in, day out, so that you can buy in bulk, more trucks and trailers, so they can make more money, so they can make more money. Obviously, makes sense. So banks really plays huge role. Obviously, buying a truck. Some people will be thinking like, "Hey, I want to buy used trucks." What are you talking about, right? I can buy used trucks. I can do X, Y, and Z. I'm not even talking to these big companies. Hey, listen, here is the deal. If you're going into buying a truck, I would definitely avoid working with big companies, like big banks like Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, although they're awesome. Just bear with me. When you're starting out, you're the hunger to make money, go into business, the excitements, it's kind of blurs everything, and you don't see the terms of conditions and the agreements, the contracts. You're not paying attention. Most of the carriers, there was a study, can't remember, but then these new coming entrepreneurs into the trucking, they're just signing papers right and left, just signing that, give me that truck so that I can just put on the road and then start making money. But what about finding a driver? But what about the market? It's up and down. What about the economy? What if you fail? Like, what if you buy a truck and then a week later it breaks down and then you can't fix it for, I don't know, for 2 months? Then what will happen? So we're not thinking negatively, right? We just avoid. I think it's just we actively, voluntarily, I would say, we're just ignoring these voices and we're like, no, I don't want to focus on this because I'm starting a brand new trucking company. I just want to buy a truck. That's what happened. Although some of my friends told me that, hey, be careful when you're working these big, banks. Just like have, small business attorney, just, hire, give, I don't know, a couple $100 and then let them go over and then break it down into simplest terms and then explain what you're signing and what you're going into. It's danger zone, and we're not thinking about this. So, and see, COVID wasn't a thing back then, let's say 2014, 2015, right? People making good money. And for those carriers who've been in business, they know. And carriers making good money back then. So I'm like, okay, we're sitting at the bank and like, hey, just signing papers. We're not into like evaluating like, hey, what will happen if we lose? So see, that is the failure aspect. You didn't even start it yet, you already failed it, right? It's very, very important. And obviously the rates back then, the rates were cheaper than nowadays, obviously. But hey, it's very important. And I do have work around this, not working these big companies out there like Chase, although I love Chase, Bank of America, and then Wells Fargo. Hey, what about small community banks? A lot, for example, we have a region, right? Regional regions. So correct me if I'm wrong. And these people, day and night, waiting for your call, just proposing them, saying that, hey, I'm going into trucking business and I need money. They'll be more than welcome to help you to get started with your trucking business. I'll give you an example. It's my like personal situation. I was about to buy my first, car. It's just, it's a personal side of my life, let's say. So, and one of my best friends, he was in the business, and he said, listen, don't go to the big banks like Chase, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo, although you can do that, but focus on these small credit unions. And I said, okay, well, what's the difference? Well, it's much, much easier to get a loan from them, and you'll know the regional manager or the branch manager just, face to face, just build a relationship with them, then you'll thank me later. And I did that. And I know his name, like it was a long time ago, but until now, I remember his name was Tim. If he was watching, I don't know, maybe in the future, maybe watching now, Tim, thank you. So he helped me to finance my first car. It wasn't BMW, it wasn't Mercedes, by the way. It was a Honda Accord. So what happened? Tim helped me with, let's say back then, Chase, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo, let's say giving 2.5 or 3.5 rate, for example, as a rate to finance the car. So I had, and by the way, I had a not really, good credit score because I was a student back then. So then, he helped me. I think it was about like 1.6 or something like that. It was below 2%. So I built a relationship. But here is the trick. If you wanted to start your trucking company, build a relationship right now. Even if you don't have a trucking business, I'm telling you, they're waiting for those calls. Actually, they do have a department that they're doing prospecting. They're just looking for the opportunity to basically give that money away so that you can make money, so they can make money. Just switch your mind. I didn't think like when I was starting out, but then obviously people were telling me that, hey, just build a relationship. I don't have a truck yet. I'm not into trucking yet, but don't just go and build a relationship with them. So I had this, car finance with Tim, let's say, from small credit union. And then I'm calling this region, small bank. And again, it's also small bank. It's not part of this, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and Chase. And I'm calling, and then I'm talking to the branch manager. And we build a relationship. When I started my company, and they helped me a lot. So instead of working with these big companies, work with small credit unions. If you're in the United States, in any states, they do have the small credit union. Go and build a relationship with them. It's very, very important. So those are the things that really made me, obviously, my numbers are declining so badly. And obviously when the COVID hit, we said, no, we were just filing a bankruptcy and we going out of business, because now all of my trucks sitting, no drivers, driving because they scared, people dying. And that was the period where when the COVID hit, it's just like, man, I give up. I can't do that. Right. So it's not a good thing, obviously, going into the business, but going out of the business It's much harder than you think. Now banks knocking your doors. Very important. There could be illegal actions against you if you don't pay it. There were some programs to help these entrepreneurs. I don't know. Some people get leverage, but then they paid more back. Something happened, but I didn't. I just like, man, I can't do it. I want to switch, and I wanted to dispatch. And then this is where I started teaching people and all that good stuff. So then second point at the beginning of this live session, I said, what I would do differently if I started today. Well, let me say this, very, very important, specifically for those of you who are watching right now who wants to do, start, career side of the business, let's say. Maybe you're dispatching already. We'll do have a Q&A session at the end. But I want to say this, learning, dispatching, and dispatching other people's trucks is crucial for your success. Hear me out. If I want to start trucking right now, what I would do is, let's say I don't know anything about dispatching. Maybe I know that people making good money with dispatching, but what I would do, I'll learn. First, don't pay any money to anybody to learn how to dispatch. Be honest with you, I have a lot of content on this channel. There are a lot of good people, amazing people teaching you how you can dispatch or learn how to dispatch. But I want to say this, learn how to dispatch first, learn ins and outs of these, let's say, the load boards, the DAT. DAT has different subscriptions. I do live on TikTok pretty much every single day. And people watching me, they're carriers, they're dispatchers, they're like, well, something wrong with those numbers. How come you see higher rates, but then I see less than 2.5 per mile, but you see more than 3.5 or than 4.5 or something like that? I'm like, guys, it's straightforward. This is filtering. I'm filtering differently, and I'm using different equipment. Maybe you're searching for a van, I'm searching for a double drop. You're searching for a box truck, I'm searching for a flatbed. So they don't know, what's happening. So I want to know every possible, like how to use load boards, basically, in and out. Okay. Different subscription levels has different tools. I'll give you an example. DAT has basic, I think $49 per month. And then we have DAT1 Select. This is what I use, and this is what I recommend to people. And by the way, links will be below this video. You can check it out. So $49, you're limited. Yes, you're paying $49, but limited in terms of tools. Okay, what are the tools and why it's so important? Well, one of the tools, very, very important, is the market conditions by DAT. Now, see what's happening. If you're paying $49, you refreshing, manually, right, to see if the broker posted new loads, meaning live feed is not option on $49. Just let's double check. But I'm pretty sure that $199, which is DAT1 Select, has this auto refresh, right? It's a live. As soon as the broker posts a load, it will be like visible to you right there, right? So you're not refreshing. It's live feed. You will see as they come, and then you can just quickly call them and then book that load. So this market condition tool allows you to strategically position your trucks in advance before. So the market condition obviously helping you strategically position your trucks before even talking to a broker, right? How so? That tool, it will be like US map. It will show you that, hey, these are the inbound states. You will be able to select drive-in, reefer, and flatbed. Let's say if you're in a flatbed, you will just click on that market, and it will just pull the busiest, let's say, markets or hot markets for you to pick from. If you're, let's say, in Charlotte, North Carolina, it will say, hey, don't go to Atlanta, Georgia, go to Louisville, Kentucky, because it has a lot of loads but less trucks. You'll learn about inbound and outbound. See, for some of you, maybe this is like, what are you talking about? What is inbound? What is outbound? And then you will also learn that, hey, there's like inbound heavy states and then outbound heavy states. Very, very crucial to understand and use load boards. And then there is obviously people making mistakes like, hey, I want to go into box truck or hotshot, and I'll be using DAT. I'm like, don't do that. Why? Well, because DAT, it's not designed for box truck. Although DAT has box truck loads, brokers posting those loads, but it's not for this market. This is very niche specific market. There's some tools out there that you can use it. One of them is 123 Load Board. It's specifically designed for this niche market. Although they have loads for box truck, they do have for van, flatbed, and reefer. But mostly you will see that there are a lot of box truck loads, a lot of hotshot loads, there are sprinter van loads. A lot of people asking questions like, hey, Kamal, like I want to go into sprinter van, do dispatch, or where I can find those loads. I'm like, hey, use 123 Load Board. And again, there is a link below this video. You can check it out. There's a 30-day free trial. And obviously that's an affiliate link that I have. So that what I would do, I'll learn everything about these tools. You can learn about DAT, and then you can, if you have access to truck stop, you can definitely do that. But hear me out. If you're saying, hey, we don't have access to DAT because we don't have MC numbers, carriers can access no problem, but you have access to 123 Load Board, and I affiliated with 123 Load Board, and I know the co-founder, his name is Lauren, he's an awesome dude, and it's an awesome company, by the way. And then the reason why I say this, because they are dispatcher friendly. That means right after this live session, what you can do, you can go ahead and buy the subscription, and you can start using the load board, and you can learn in and out. So use YouTube to learn, and then you have these free tools. If you have access to load boards, that's awesome. You can obviously join the programs or the courses, but I definitely focus on, if you're starting out, focus on YouTube, because there, as I said, a lot of videos to learn from. Once you learn how to become a truck dispatcher, know a little bit more about being independent freight dispatcher. So how it's different. Well, truck dispatcher is someone who knows how to use load board, and they'll be working for a single carrier, maybe in office, maybe working remotely for a carrier. Independent freight dispatcher, as name implies, is being independent, working independently and dispatching multiple trucks. This is where you will need your LLC, and this is where the independent freight dispatching agency comes in. And this is what I teach, basically, how you can become independent freight dispatcher and how you can start independent freight dispatching agency. So once you start your independent freight dispatching agency, you now need to attract carriers. And this is one of the popular questions out there. People will be asking, like, how am I attracting these carriers? Maybe you right now watching as a dispatcher, maybe you're thinking, like, how am I going to attract these carriers? I did this, I did that, and then it wasn't successful. Guys, I'm not telling you that you need to go to FMCSA, download the list, and start calling these people. The reason why you don't want to do that is because they didn't give you the permission to call them this first. Although it's publicly available, you can download and start calling these people. I wouldn't recommend doing that. Why? Well, because these people don't know anything about your business, and you don't know anything about their business. It's very challenging. Why? Well, because they have multiple equipments. You need to do filtering by yourself. It's just a PDF. You download a list of carriers, and they're new active carriers. That means these people don't know anything about trucking. They just started. They have brand new MCs. And then you learn that the hard way, obviously, that most of the brokers, majority of brokers, they don't work with new MCs. They work with established MCs. That means at least 6 months you have to be in the business. So then obviously brokers will be assigning loads to you. Although there's some list of brokers out there that can help you with the loads, but it's tough, right? I won't recommend doing that. So how you're going to attract? So there is obviously the paid version, and then or paid way, and then a free way. Well, let's focus on this session, specifically how we can do for free, because you maybe just starting out. As I said, 123 Load Board has will give you the access to carriers. Yes, it's there. So if you want me to do that, I can pull that 123 load, but I will show you that how easy it is to sign up and at the same time pull those carriers and then start, talking to those people saying, hey, I'm using 123 load board. You're using 123 load board. I'm a dispatcher. I can help you. And that's it. You take it from there. Another way, I think the best way to do is by just marketing. Imagine me right now talking to you and I'm sharing ins and outs of this load boards or whatnot, how to book loads, how to book these high paying loads, how to build lanes, connect with these direct shippers and whatever. And you watching as a carrier, you want to do business. Naturally, you attract it and you want to do business with me. What you're doing, you will be following up with me, maybe emailing, maybe follow up on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, saying that, hey, I do have this equipment. I need your help. That means promoting your services by actually creating content, I think is the best way to attract customers. That's what I learned over the years. I taught thousands of dispatchers and talked to what I would say consult many, many carriers. That works. Instead of going these public database and you just download the list, not knowing anything about the carrier and they don't know anything about you, maybe you're really good at sales, it's not going to last long, the relationship. Why is that? Well, attracting carriers is one problem. And then obviously having them to saying yes to your business, let's say convincing these people so that they can work with you. It's like the probability of them saying yes is below 5%, let's say. And then obviously what I'm trying to say is if you have them, you convince them and you're dispatching them, this is very important to know that keeping them in the game will be tough. Tough because you didn't know anything about their business. They didn't know anything about your business. Maybe they needed your services right back then. And then obviously you did a great job convincing these people and they said yes to you. But then the probability of them just disappearing next month after 2 months is pretty high. So you don't want to do that. What you need to do is just basically attract, them to you, obviously have the dispatcher carrier agreement signed, and then you take it from there. So another thing is if that's basically becoming an independent dispatcher, then obviously start independent freight dispatching agency and then pick a niche. Very important. I teach my students saying, hey, pick a niche is very important. Instead of dispatching everything, right? I need everything. Don't do that. You don't need box truck. You don't need hot shot. You don't need sprint event. Why? Because it's competitive and you won't find loads using these major load boards like DAT truck stop, right? Don't do that. What you need to do is there's 3 major load boards: drive in, reefer, and flatbed. Just pick one, flatbed. And why is a flatbed? Well, flatbed makes the most money. Go do research and you will see that these people making really good money. 35K, some people making 40K gross revenue. It's tough, but then I do know some dispatchers, they make 35, 40K. But then most of the, flatbed owners, they make about 30K gross revenue per month. And then obviously you make percentage, you make, good money, with that. So pick flatbed and start dispatching flatbed carriers. Okay. You start dispatching, you learn, and you're like, okay, and now you're ready to buy a truck. So instead of buying a truck, let me say this: don't buy a truck. Yes, you heard me right. Don't buy a truck. What you need to do is rent a car. If I were you, I'll do this. There's a company, Penske, there's a Ryder. Ryder is the best. A lot of people recommending working with Ryder. Why? Well, I think they have the really awesome package. The package is they won't give you, means renting instead of buying. I'll give you reason, and then I will tell you why. Very important, very strategic. Ryder won't give you one truck if you're starting your trucking company. They'll give you, if I'm not mistaken, I think they will give you 4 or 5 trucks. Right off the gate, you starting your trucking company, they'll give you 4 or 5 trucks. Why is that? Well, failing your trucking company, or let's say this, probability of you failing your trucking company if you start with 1 truck, let's say it's 90%. That's for sure. The probability of you failing your trucking company, if you have 3 or 5 trucks, you started with 3 or 5 trucks, that decreases drastically. Maybe it's now 40%, let's say, right? Why is that? Well, listen, if you have 1 truck, if it breaks down, that's it. You're pretty much out of business, right? It's, as I said, it's capital intensive business. It will be eating your money, right? So you'll be paying out of pocket. So if you're low on money, that's it, it's gone, right? God forbid, accident. One of my drivers was hit by a car in California. Like, I don't even want to talk about that. It's nightmare. Don't want that happen to, God forbid. So if that happens, that's it. You're out of business. Like, insurance will give up on you. That's it. You won't be able to make money, and you will just, the next logical action will be just filing a bankruptcy or just going out of business. That's it, right? Trucks repossessed, all that bad stuff. You don't want that. Imagine now 3, 4 trucks. 1 breaks down, 2, 3 is running. That's what Ryder wants. So if I wanted to start today trucking company, I won't buy a truck. I start with Ryder. I'll get 4 or 5 trucks, and I'll start obviously dispatching because I know how to dispatch. Remember, we started with independent freight dispatching, then independent freight dispatching agency. I dispatch multiple trucks. I know the jargon, the terminology and everything ins and outs of this general freight. Now I'm ready to buy my trucks. Now here is the deal. Don't combine these 2 companies, like dispatching company and trucking company. I made that mistake. You don't do that. Why? And here's the reason. Back then, when I was running my carrier side of the business, I was hiring owner operators under my MC. Okay. Well, it's very attractive to those people who own truck and trailer, and it's for me very attractive because I'm not buying trucks and trailers. I'm just dispatching and getting my 10%. That's where the 10% analogy comes in, right? A lot of you like saying, "Hey, 10% is a lot," but people paying 5%, like 10%, if you have your own MC. That's where the 10% analogy comes in. So then I'm hiring these people under my MC, right? And I'm dispatching, and then I'm getting my 10%. They're happy. I'm happy. So then one day, driver calls you, or one of your owner operators calls you. These are the people under your MC. Says, "Hey, I have a violation, or violations. I'm this or that," right? Guess what? It affects me, my company, not theirs. Why? Because they don't have a company, right? They're working under my MC. There is an agreement, obviously, right? But hey, imagine if somebody calls you, like owner operator, one of your own owner operators, if you do this, it's like, "I have a really bad accident." That's it. You're in a lawsuit. You're in a bad position. People were just dragging in your company. So don't do that. Then when I started dispatch trucks, what I did, I separated. This is my trucking side of the business. Prime Express runs own trucks, 4 or 5 trucks. And then here's my dispatching business, dispatch trucks, dispatching only the owner operators. I'm not taking 5%, maybe I'm taking 7%, but hey, they have their own MC and they're leveraging, let's say, my company and my dispatchers, and we both happy. So, and that is very important. Then obviously what I said, you're dispatching, you have your dispatching company, let's say ABC dispatching company. Now you ready. Hey, Abdul, how you doing? So then what do? You start your dispatch trucking company. You already have your dispatching company. Buy the truck. I mean, they rent the truck from Ryder, let's say, and you start dispatching. And this dispatching company will contract with your carrier side of the business, and it will be dispatching your trucks. So that's how you make money in trucking, and then obviously avoid those mistakes that I did. Very, very important. Now, these new carriers and stock carriers, right now, there are a lot of carriers. They're in nightmare right now. They wake up middle of the night, looking at this, ceilings, and they'll be like, "Man, I'm 3-4 days away from bankruptcy." A lot of carriers out there, and it's very sad that we have that. And what I would say, if you are, let's say, running in a flatbed, think switching markets. Like if you're on drive-in, you're not making money, try to rent flatbed trailers. And again, don't go into buying mode. Don't do that. Anytime you can buy a truck, don't do that. Just remember that there are some companies like Penske, there, Ryder. I think the best option is Ryder. You can rent trailer, pay a couple $100, and then just dispatch and see how that goes. And if you make more money, obviously you can switch fully from, let's say, driving back to the flatbed. That would be the number one reason. And obviously scaling will be, you can slowly scale because it's not a numbers game when it comes to flatbed. And as I said, it's very labor intensive than driving. Driving is, it's numbers game. Add more drivers and then, hey, you're making good money. So hiring drivers, and I think this is where I made a mistake, coming back to the mistakes. I was hiring drivers. I needed desperately, so desperate, needing these drivers. I'm like, here, I'm on social media, I'm on Craigslist, I'm like calling my friends, yeah, I need a driver. I didn't think about training them. Like, not even running a background check. Hey, do you have a CDL? That's it, you have a job. You setting yourself up to failure. Please don't do that. Even if you're just starting out, brand new, you're talking to a driver, look into background. Clean background is very important. Well, obviously nowadays there are a lot of people, they do have, they're like CDL holders, like drivers. So if they don't have a training, be careful. If you have a training department or something like that, you can definitely train them, but hire trained CDL drivers. So if they're not trained, they don't know what they're doing. I made that mistake. I remember I bought this brand new trailer, brand new truck, and we had an accident. First load, I desperately needed a driver. I'm like, man, we're killing it. We need, this trailer. We bought this trailer and then he messed up. And I do have those pictures and videos. If you want to, I can share with you. You don't want to be in that situation. Like, as a business owner, you're looking at man, what am I doing wrong? Well, you're doing a lot of wrong things. Obviously, you don't know your numbers. You don't train your drivers. You're hiring right and left. And at the same time, I want to share this with you. I don't know, if you're a business owner watching this, I was too personal with my drivers. There is obviously, I'm not that person hey, I'm looking at the top hey, this bragging that I don't know, proud, or what's the word I'm looking for? Say English is my third language. It's I was making real connections with my drivers, treating them my best friends, treating them like their family members, although they're part of the family. Yes, but hey, business is business. I made that mistake. I was I need to be too personal with them. Hey, let's go to this restaurant with you. Hey, let me do this with you. Do this for you or that for you. I try to understand this, and then quickly you realize that you made big mistake, allowing you to be available 24/7, 365. Although I had dispatchers, I could have just let my dispatchers talk to my drivers. I was like, no. I'm building, now I'm not the employer for them, for my employees. I was more of a friend, and they were talking to me like their friends. And how you talk to your friends, and how your friends talk to you, right? They're too personal. You allow them talk the way they talk to you, and obviously we're different. Some people allow more, some people allow less. But then drivers, hey, they're making money in their employees. Treat them as employees. Yeah, I'm not saying that treat them badly, treat them with respect, understand their situation, obviously, but then there should be a barrier. I didn't have that barrier, to be honest with you. So I'm we're friends, you're helping me make money. It's yeah, now we're friends. Okay, let's see what I can do for you, right? Don't do that. Now, obviously, it's very, very important. So that's how I would start if I wanted to start, let's say, trucking business today, learning independent freight dispatching, run your independent freight dispatching agency, dispatch other people's trucks, make money, learn the business. Then don't buy, rent 2, 3, 4, trucks, and then start dispatching your trucks, and then you can grow from there. And then you can, if you wanted to buy a truck, you can then buy your trucks, but then don't buy right away. As I said, if you just joined, you can go back, obviously watch whatever I shared with you. So this is the Q&A part of this. If you guys have questions, please let me know. I'll do my best to help you with those questions. As you can see on the right side, it's a pretty cool thing by StreamYard that you can see that on bottom. What is it here? There you go. See that? You have, if you post, you will see that your comment automatically will show up. So, and then I'll do my best to help. Before you do that, or while you're doing or typing your question, maybe you have the burning question, just let them come in and then let me take those and help you with those questions. Remember at the beginning, we said that we do have these 6 questions, mostly asked questions from the YouTube channel that I pulled, and here are I do have right in front of me, and I will take them while waiting for your questions. Number 1 question is, should I lease or rent or buy a truck when starting out? As I said, when you're starting out, don't buy a truck. Lease, not even leasing, rent, and I will give you specific company, Use Rider. They have really awesome and competitive package. It'll be like, you will set yourself up for success if you work with this company and don't buy a truck yet. And imagine if something happens, you can definitely turn your trucks back, and that's it. You're not making payments. Hey, you're renting them, right? So you pay as you go. So if you're not making money, you can definitely let them take their trucks back and trailers, whatnot. You can rent trailers and you can rent trucks. And then also, what I heard, some regions helping you hiring drivers. They'll be helping you. It's amazing that they do have. Well, see, like their business model is, hey, help these small carriers to quickly scale. Start with 4 or 5 trucks, right? Help this business owner hiring the driver, and just support them as they go, so that we can just give more trucks to these trucking companies. That's why they're pretty successful, right? And that's what I would do. I'll start renting the truck. Then if I want to buy a truck, while you're renting the truck, what you need to do is just build a relationship with these small community banks, right? Know the regional manager or the manager by name. They're waiting for you. Trust me. Day in, day out, they desperately need your call. I would personally go there and just shake hands and say, hey, I'm starting my business. I want to build a relationship because I will be, buying trucks or whatever. While you're renting, you're making money, then you can invest that money like down payment, and you can buy your first truck, second truck, whatever. So the second question is, how many trucks should I start with? 1 or more? Definitely I'm leaning towards more trucks. If I want to start trucking company today, I'll start with 5 trucks. Not 1, not 2, not 3, 5 trucks. And then reason I explained, I don't need to explain again, but if you missed it, you can go back and watch. 5 trucks, I would start my trucking with 5 trucks, not less than that. So number 3, the question we have, the next question, is it better to go into flatbed, reefer, or drive-in in 2025? In 2025, more specifically, I would go into flatbed. If I want to start trucking company right now, yes, because I do have experience, because I was a flatbed carrier myself, I would start with the flatbed because flatbed makes money, and it's many reasons out there, but I will give you the one trick. Banks will be looking at how much money you make, and the flatbed will be making about 30 to 35K gross revenue, and your gross revenue is very important. And now see, if you're making about 30 grand and you multiply it by 5, instead of making 30 grand per month, now you're making 150, right? Because you have 5 trucks. Very important. Not drive-in, brutally competitive. A lot of drive-in players out there. I don't want to do that unless you have direct shipper, right? And you can definitely do that. I don't want to try reefer. Why? Because of the appointments, and I'll give you a reason why. I heard a lot of stories about flatbed. About 2 days ago, one of my friends hauling watermelons, he was late for appointment, and if you are a carrier watching, you can relate to this, and he just can't deliver, and they're not taking it. The receiver says, no, you're late, That's it, gone. We'll be claiming to your insurance, whatever. We'll be talking to your brokers and all that stuff. So you don't need to do that. Obviously, if you have really good experience in reefer, then you can definitely do that. But I do have a couple of my friends, they are into meat game. They do have direct shipper and they're killing it. They have hundreds of reefer trucks. They're okay. So number 4, how do I hire drivers if I don't have a strong brand yet? So if you don't have the strong brand yet, don't focus heavily on the branding or something like that. You just focus on, so if you are, let's say, even if you haven't started yet, start your social media channels. Very, very important. Instagram is available for free. And I do know one of my friends, he's killing with his TikTok account, talking about his like day-to-day operation, like how he's hiring his drivers, he's talking to his drivers, he's giving bonuses to his drivers, he's sharing with the world. And obviously CDL owners watching that, and then they'll be like, man, I want to work with this guy. And what they're doing is DMing, and he's like, see how many drivers DMing me, they want to work with me. I relate to that. Why and how? Well, I do live sessions on TikTok talking to carriers, and carriers will be asking questions like, hey, come on, look up this lane or that lane. I'm like on the load board showing them, helping them, and then dispatchers ask questions. And right after the session, right, the live session, and I will see like a lot of DMs, carriers asking my help. Hey, Kamal, I need you as my dispatcher. Can we talk? Right? So same thing. So even if you are running dispatching agency, you can definitely do that. Hey, social media, it's there. You just share what you're doing. That's it. And then people will be, obviously reaching out to you saying, hey, I need your help. So if you don't have a brand yet, that's what I would recommend. And secondly, as a carrier, remember this. Most drivers, most CDL holders will be working with the small companies. These are the companies like 10, 15, and there's a reason. Why? Well, because big companies don't pay much. Small trucking companies pay really good. And at the same time, these people, like drivers, they know the company owner or the president or the CEO, or call whatever you want, the boss, by name. They're friends, right? I was one of their friends. Okay, so I shared the story with you already. So, and just remember that they're willing to work with small carriers, right? If you pay good and then you treat them well, they'll stick with you. They don't care how many trucks you have. Man, driver can drive only one, truck. If you have even one truck, if you can give him a good money, he'll be driving your truck, no problem. And you'll be thinking like, hey, Kamal, you said 5 trucks. Man, hiring a driver, if you have 5 trucks, hiring a driver, it's not. There's no problem with that. If you're in a flatbed, when you hire those people, you just pay them more and just attract that way. Give them more money. Okay, it's okay to not make money 3, 4, 5 months. It's okay. You just build your business. And from there, you can obviously improve on hiring drivers and then the contracts, whatnot. Then obviously you pay less and attract, other CDL holders. So that is that. And number 5, what's the first step if I wanted to become a carrier, but I'm currently dispatching? If you're currently dispatching, you are in a good position. What I would recommend is focus on the market that you're going into or wanted to go into. I'll give you an example. If you dispatching box truck, hot shot, sprinter van, but what I would do, maybe you're dispatching drive-in, you're dispatching RGN loads or reefer loads here and there, flatbed, and then you want to go into the flatbed, hire more flatbed owners and learn more about, and then you can obviously not renting trucks, right? 3, 4, 5 trucks at a time, and then that's how I would start, and that's what I would recommend. Now, what's the biggest mistakes people make when getting loans for trucks? As I said at the beginning, number 1 mistake that they're making, they're not paying attention to terms of conditions and contracts, not reviewing them, just signing, writing left. I want that truck. Just let me sign this. Okay, how many pages left? Okay, I desperately want this truck. I wanted to put this truck on the road and then start making money. This is where they've, setting them for a failure. right then. It's like, a slow down. Just think in terms of like, what would happen when you put that truck on the road. Will you be able to hire a driver, a good driver? Will you be making money? What about the economy? See, we didn't know anything about the, what is it, the COVID. It hit, like, it killed obviously a lot of people, unfortunately. And it's like, it's a history that happened right in front of us, like world pandemic. Would, like, what will happen tomorrow? We don't know. So you just need to slow down. That's the mistake people making. You just slow down and you think, like, I would hire small business attorney. I'll just, just let them review, saying that, hey, just break it down into like very regular or plain English. Explain me what I'm signing. What are the terms? What should I need to pay attention? You'll quickly realize that, hey, there are a lot of moving pieces in those contracts. I personally know that. Just be careful with those. Okay. And obviously, the second biggest mistake that these new coming carriers making, working with like big, banks like Bank of America, Chase, or Wells Fargo. Don't do that. There are plenty, hundreds of thousands of other small credit union banks, small banks. That's what I'm trying to say. That willing to work with you, and they're very competitive. They're not thinking about this like, oh, Chase is good. Well, Chase is good if you really have up and running business. Long term, yes, I would definitely recommend working with Chase, but not at the beginning. Not even buying your truck at the beginning. You will, as I said, you rent 5 trucks. Let me say this: I was attending one of the trucking events, and I was talking to a couple of the trucking owners. One of them has about 700 trucks. The other one close to 200 trucks. And what they told me is that none of those trucks, they don't own those trucks. It's all by rider. They renting those, trucks. I was like, that was the moment for me, is like, well, if these people, I just talk only to these 2 owners, they're pretty much renting hundreds of trucks and killing it. They're making a lot of money in trucking, and they don't own any trucks. You can be asset-based trucks. You can search for that term, asset-based trucking company. Obviously, there's some advantages and disadvantages. I'll give you an example. I have one of my friends, he's asset-based, and he buys right and left these car haulers because they hold a value. They're not depreciate that much. Like your drive-in and, reefer and flatbed will depreciate, pretty quickly, but then they hold the value. I mean, car haulers. So that he's buying it, and he's like, hey, Kamal, if I'm not making money, I'm good. Like when I'm paid off, I can just sell my trucks and I'll have millions of dollars. That's an asset based. So he's like, if it's very downtime, let's say the bad economy, what he's doing, he's selling a couple of, so he's using money that he sold these 2 trucks, putting back into the business, and that's how he makes money.